Hey all, this is Devin. Another day of Writing Daily. And if you are just joining us, turn up your volume so you can hear me. Turn it up right now. Today we're going to discuss writing like you talk. This is a really interesting subject, so I hope you're going to stick with us. If you are new, check this out. I'm Devin, the editor-in-chief of In the Know Traveler. I have an MFA in creative nonfiction, and I am the author of the forthcoming book, 10,000 Miles with My Dead Father's Ashes. Hey, Coral, good to see you. I actually am responding to your question today about how to write and how to sort of navigate writing like you talk, because there's a couple things that I want to just bring up. What do I want to say? I think that's the whole goal of writing well. In other words, if you're writing like you talk, in all likelihood, you're going to be presenting something authentic. But there's a couple things that you want to consider. Here's an example. One of the best books ever, maybe the first American novel to some, depending on who you talk to. Anyway, Mark Twain's Huckleberry Finn. I wanted to read you something, right, that is right the very first thing in the book. And it says, in this book, a number of dialects are used, to wit, the Missouri Negro dialect, the extremist form of the backwoods Southern dialect, the ordinary Pike County dialect, and 4 modified varieties of the last. The shadings have not been done in a haphazard fashion or by guesswork, but painstakingly and with the trustworthy guidance and support of personal familiarity with these several forms of speech. I make this explanation for the reason that without it, many readers would suppose that all these characters were trying to talk alike and not succeeding, said in sort of Mark Twain's most magical way. Anyway, what's important about that is that if I write like I talk, I'm probably going to use a lot of vagueness, because if I was having a direct conversation with you, I may not be, really examining while I'm speaking to making the best word choice possible in every circumstance. Sometimes I'm going to use some vague words, but maybe by waving my hand and doing things like that, you're going to understand what it is that I'm ultimately saying through the context. But when you take away the visual of sort of like the face-to-face and it's all on the page, you have to be a little bit more accurate in sort of like your word choices to make sure that your reader is like right there with you, because it doesn't take much to distract somebody away from, from good reading. So the points that I'm trying to make today is that, yeah, I think the whole goal is that you want to write like you talk. But I think your first hurdle and the first thing that you really want to be aware of is that if you're going to write like you talk, you have to make sure that you're combing through it to make sure that you're being, in selective cases, very, very clear in word choice. So you make sure that the reader doesn't get lost in some of the vagueness or in the things that we use in colloquial ways that might lose the reader. So it's really important to do that. What I would say that it's very easy to do is to use the way you speak within dialogue. I think that is the easiest way. It's something that if you're reading a book and the author jumps into dialect, or jumps into an accent, or jumps into something where might be a little bit different, it's forgivable if we know that Anne is from the South, or that Louis has some sort of a California drawl. As long as Louis keeps doing his California drawl throughout, and Anne keeps doing her southern accent throughout, we're going to stick with you. We're gonna go along with it because that's just part of who Louis and Anne are, right? So we're gonna hang tight with that kind of stuff. The issue can become, like, I'm going to give you an example. There's a writer named Chuck Palahniuk. He's the guy who wrote Fight Club, Lullaby, Choke, Survivor, and lots of other great books. He also wrote something called Pygmy. I'm a big fan of his. Pygmy was a little bit rushed. Or pardon me, it was a little bit difficult for me, and I never got through it. But the reason why I didn't get through it is that he basically kind of takes this odd broken English language and uses it for the narration throughout. And it's a little weird and it's a little bit challenging to read. And I understand what he's trying to do, but you're talking about 240 pages of a very unusual way that somebody's speaking. He conveys his message expertly because he's a spectacular writer. But as a reader, it wasn't something that was really holding my attention all that well. So I came back and forth with it. So I guess what I'm saying is you should write like you talk. I think I remember reading a quote where Henry Miller says, if I could only write like I talk, I would be the best writer of all time. I'm paraphrasing loosely. So I guess the goal is, yes, you want to write like you talk, but you also want to be mindful that maybe the way you talk does not convey the message effectively. So what that means is write like you talk, like get it all out on the first draft, get your stories and your thoughts down on paper as quickly as possible. But then in your revisions, be really clear to go, okay, am I really conveying precisely the pictures and images I have on my head that are now on paper? If they're not, I mean, you may need a second, pair of eyes to do it, or you just may need to walk through and say, well, did I really say the thing that I wanted to say on the page? So I think the easiest way to write like you talk, so to speak, is by using it in dialogue or somebody else's dialogue, and it doesn't matter whether it is fiction or nonfiction. You're creating sort of like a specific style. But remember, as long as you're transmitting the message of whatever your character is saying or whatever's happening in the scene, I think you can totally do that. You just want to make sure that you're presenting something that is going to be clear throughout for your readers. So that's my short answer. I think this is probably going to be a short one today, but as always, make sure that you kind of put comments in this box over here, like me on Facebook, like my fan page at devingallaudet.com. Always ask questions. I'm more than happy to do what I've just done now, like answer something in one of the podcasts, or I will write a response on this box or YouTube or Facebook or Twitter. I'm sort of everywhere and I'm easy to find. And here's the thing. As long as I'm doing this every single day, I am writing and I'm active in my own craft, and I want you guys to hang in there with me and you put out your best novel. So anyway, that's what I've got for today. I hope you're having a fantastic day, and I will see you guys again tomorrow.